Hello, and welcome to episode 15, part 2 of KRAD COVID Readings. This is a week-long thing whereby I am reading the Dragon Precinct novelette, When the Magick Goes Away, Danthres and Torin's first case. This is a story that I wrote back in 2012 that gives sort of the secret origin of the detective pairing that are the main characters of the series, and how they first met 10 years ago. So here, without further ado, When the Magick Goes Away, Part 2. Torin. Torin Ben Wyvald felt oddly nervous as he approached the castle that served as the seat of Lord Albin and Lady Mirka's domain. He had, over the past 5 years, left his childhood home, the only person to voluntarily leave Miverin in recent memory, or even not so recent, nearly died in the forest of Orvan during a particularly brutal winter, and fought in a war. He had done more than he ever could have imagined when he departed the safe haven of home for the greater world of Flingaria outside Miverin's cloistered walls. So why was his stomach doing backflips at the notion of simply approaching a castle door? Steeling himself, he entered through the portcullis, traversed the grand foyer, and then had no idea where to go next. Conveniently, there was a man in armor standing near one of the doorways. The style of leather armor was the same as the other members of the castle guard he saw at the tavern. This one had a griffin insignia on his chest, just like the two lieutenants, but no cloak, like the guard who'd been standing outside. "Excuse me," Torin said to the guard, who had been staring straight ahead until Torin approached him. "Yeah?" the guard asked. "My apologies, but I'm here to see General Osric." The guard squinted. "Ain't no General Osric here. Unless Captain Osric's been promoted without telling nobody." At that, Torin chuckled. "My apologies. Your captain and I served in the war together, and he was a general then." "So I heard." He stepped away from the doorway and pointed down a corridor. "Head down that way, then hang yourself a left at the big dragon statue, then a right at the unicorn tapestry, right through as a squadron." Inclining his head, Torin said, "My thanks, kind sir," and then followed those directions. Once he navigated past a hideous statue of a dragon and a pretty tapestry portraying a unicorn gambolling in the woods, he found himself in a large room filled with desks. A picture window filled the north wall, providing rather a nice view of the forest outside the city-state's outskirts. The east wall had a doorway, and 3 more doorways ran along across the south wall. He saw 3 people in leather armor that had the same griffin insignia on the chest as Tresyllione and Quain from the Stone Kobold and the corridor guard, though he saw neither detective. None were wearing cloaks, but Torin noticed a pegboard on which hung 5 earth-colored cloaks. The 3 were each sitting at desks, writing on scrolls. One got up, went to the window, saying, "The Garen case." The window then shimmered and twisted, the forest view being replaced with the bearded male face of an imp. Said imp spoke in a thin, reedy voice. "You don't need to say which case, you know. I'm perfectly capable of filing the scrolls in their proper place." "Your optimism amuses me, Ep," the lieutenant said. "Just put these in with the Garen case." "Fine, fine," Ep said in what Torin imagined to be a long-suffering tone. The lieutenant placed the scrolls in the imp's beard, and it disappeared shortly thereafter, allowing the view of the forest to return. After that, the lieutenant turned to look at Torin. "You impressed with the view or the imp?" "Oh, I've seen imps before," Torin said with a smile. The boat I took to Cliff's End used one for announcements to the passengers, and I encountered more than one when I served in the army." Returning the smile, the lieutenant said, "So it's the view, then?" "It is a very pretty forest. It's called Nimvale, if I recall the area geography, yes?" "Yes." "Surprised you didn't learn that upon arrival." "Oh, no, wait, you said you came by sea." Torin nodded. "I'm actually here to see Captain Osric. Is he available?" "That depends on who needs him." "I'm Torin Ben Wyvald." Offering his gloved hand, the detective said, "I'm Lieutenant Geff Linder." Accepting the hand, Torin added, "I served under your captain when he was a general in King Marcus and Queen Marta's army." Linder chuckled. "Took on the Elf Queen with him, did you? Well, if he's willing to make time for you, most like." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Did he really lose the eye fighting the Elf Queen's brother? Glancing sidelong at Linder, Torin asked, Is that what he told you? Wyatt, no. He won't tell us a damn thing. No, it's something Sir Palric told us once. Torin blinked. Sir Palric? You know him. Linder shook his head. Right, of course you do. You both served under the captain. Well, I had no idea Palric was of the nobility. He certainly never gave any indication of it during the war. Linder snorted. He hasn't given much indication of it here, neither. In fact, he was interrupted by the east wall door flying open and 3 people walking out. Quain, looking relieved, Tresyllione, looking pissed, and Osric, looking, well, a great deal like Osric always did. Torin couldn't remember a time when his erstwhile commander didn't scowl. A man wearing a green cloak came in from one of the other doorways. As he did, Osric said, Sergeant Newcastle, take Lieutenant Quain to Sir Gevlin. He'll need to be processed out as he's resigning his commission as a member of the Castle Guard. Newcastle, the man in the green cloak, sighed. Come on with me, boy. The pair of them exited through the same west wall door that Torin had come in through. Quain had been completely out of his depth in the stone kobold. The half-elf woman was doing all the work, but Torin had thought he was at least trying. Quitting seemed an extreme reaction. One of the other detectives said, Couldn't handle it, huh? Or couldn't handle her. Not that anyone can handle her. What's that, Danthres? 10 partners? Osric and Tresyllione both gave that detective a nasty look. Then Osric did the scariest thing Torin had ever seen him do. He smiled. We'll have to see how good you are at handling her then, Ian. As of now, you and Tresyllione are partners. Ian's face fell. The other 2 detectives chortled. Trust me, Tresyllione said in a low voice. I'm as thrilled about it as you are. What did I do to deserve this? You're one of the most experienced detectives I have, Osric said, and I want this murder solved. You have too damn many bar brawls as it is. Now people are using them to shield a murder. I want it solved, and that means I need my best detective on it. Hey, Linder said, since when is this shitbrain your best detective? Thanks, partner, Ian muttered. Osric put his hands on his hips. Since he closed the Garen case, and don't tell me you both closed it. I know for a fact that he was the one who found that gnome and interrogated him while you were taking a personal day. Torin shook his head and chuckled. Osric hadn't changed a bit, it seemed. At that point, Tresyllione was staring at Torin. What are you doing here? Did you remember something else? Before Torin could reply, Osric also noticed him. Lord and lady, is that you, Ben Wyvald? Yes, sir. My apologies, Lieutenant Tresyllione. I'm afraid I'm not here about the incident at the Stone Kobold. Rather, I'd like to visit with my former commanding officer. Osric looked at Tresyllione. He was the witness you mentioned? Yes, she said. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with your assessment of him as someone we shouldn't trust. Torin shot Danthres a look. Why not trust me? Ian rolled his eyes. Don't take it personal, mister. Danthres doesn't trust anyone. You needn't be concerned, Osric said. There is no circumstance under which Torin Ben Wyvald would be part of a conspiracy to commit murder. Take Ian, see if you can go find the people the wizard found with that spell. With a big sigh, Ian got up from his chair and went to the pegboard. What spell is that? A damned impressive spell, actually, Tresyllione said as she headed toward the pegboard. It peels back the events in a place and shows them to the wizard. Just the wizard? Tresyllione nodded. It won't work if there are any other living beings around. So you have to take the wizard's word for it? Yes, but, well, he's a wizard. They're completely trustworthy. Tresyllione spoke as if it were the most natural thing. Ian and Tresyllione moved toward the door as Ian put his cloak on. Yeah? What about Chalmeric the Foul? Fine. Members of the Brotherhood of Wizards are trustworthy. If they weren't, the Brotherhood wouldn't let them in, would they? Hope so. Who are we looking for? The woman's answer was lost as they continued down the corridor and out of earshot. So, Ben Wyvald, Osric said. What brings you here? Suddenly conscious of the eyes of Linder and the other detective, not to mention the imp in the window, Torin said, I'd be happy to answer that question in private, if you don't mind. Nodding, Osric said, Of course not. He looked around the squadron. Linder, Karastan, I'm sure you all have work you can be doing, and where the hell is Nail? Karastan said, He's chatting with Jez, that sailor friend of his, about the robberies on Sandy Brook Way. So why aren't you with him? Jez doesn't like me. Osric shook his head. All right. Don't you two need to talk to the magistrate first thing in the morning? Yes, we're ready. Better be. Osric took a breath. Come on in my office, Ben Wyvald. Grinning, Torin followed Osric into the small office. As the captain closed the door behind him, Torin said, I see you still can't leave a room without shouting at each of your subordinates at least once. I can't let them think I'm not paying attention, now can I? Osric sat down behind the desk, and Torin took one of the facing guest chairs. When did you get into Cliff's End? 2 days ago, on the Stars Rising. The boat's first mate was grumbling about how much harder it was to make an honest living this last year, ever since old one-eyed Osric took over the guard. Osric snorted. Good to know my reputation is preceding me. You definitely have been doing well for yourself. That first mate was not the only person who spoke highly of your castle guard. He grinned. And you can afford a better eye patch. The captain's hand moved to the silk patch that covered his left eye, which was of much higher quality than the one he'd been using in the last days of the war. Indeed, but I can't take complete credit. The guard is entirely Lord Albin's work. I merely administrate it, though I will freely admit to doing a better job than my predecessor. He shook his head. Then again, a dead goblin could do a better job than Brisbane. I've been working to get rid of the detectives he thought were worth promoting, and trying to promote up the ones who actually know their asses from their elbows. I suppose it's not going as well as you'd hoped, based on what just happened with young Lieutenant Quain. Osric shrugged. Sergeant back at Mermaid thought highly enough of him that I didn't want to just let him go. He chuckled. So I paired him with Tresyllione, which I knew would have him quitting inside a week. Slowly, Torin said, She's interesting. She's brilliant is what she is, but she's also impossible. She's gone through half a dozen partners since I promoted her. He shook his head. Brisbane put her in Goblin as a rookie. Usually we break people in by sending them to Unicorn, but... He chuckled again. Apologies, Ben Wyvald. You don't know our system. Goblin Precinct is our poorest area, and Unicorn is where all the rich bastards live. Torin nodded. Of course. Brisbane kept Tresyllione in Goblin, hoping she'd wash out. He felt she wasn't guard material. He blew out a breath. He may have been right to a degree. She is constantly fighting with the nobility and irritating witnesses and just generally being difficult. But she also has the best instincts of anyone I've ever seen. A small smile pricked up the side of his mouth. Enough about my travails. I doubt you wish to hear about him. What have you been up to? Leaning back in the wooden chair, Torin said, Less than I'd like to admit. Since my pension never materialized... That got a small growl from Osric. The army had a policy whereby, if someone died, the money that was set aside for their pension would be fed back into the army's coffers. What they neglected to mention was that they had done so for the living soldiers as well, so anyone lucky enough to live through the war did not receive their promised reward. Torin went on. I've had to find work here and there. It hasn't been easy. There are far too many former soldiers and not nearly enough things for them to do. Well, we've taken on several as guards, but Osric was interrupted by a knock at the door. Then it opened to reveal the sergeant, Newcastle. Sorry to interrupt, Captain, but I'm afraid Sir Gevlin needs to see you right away. Says it's urgent. Standing up, Osric scowled deeply. Very well. My apologies, Ben Wyvald, but one of the first things I learned after I accepted this job from Lord Albin was that when someone with the prefix Sir has a request, it must be fulfilled immediately. Where are you staying? The Flying Unicorn Inn. It's right next to the Stone Kobold. That's why I was drinking there, in fact. Why don't we meet for drinks at the old Ball and Chain tomorrow night? We can catch up in a more civilized setting. Torin grinned. I would like that very much, Captain. Osric tilted his head. And shave, will you please? Your face looks like a ravaged forest. As they exited Osric's office, Torin said, I was thinking of growing a beard, actually. Well, make up your mind one way or the other. You look ridiculous. Says the man who always has stubble. Rubbing his slightly hairy chin, Osric said, Yes, but on me, it works. With that, Osric left through the west wall door at top speed. Torin made his way to that door more slowly, but Newcastle grabbed his shoulder. Yes? Newcastle removed the hand quickly from the shoulder. You served with the captain. Torin nodded. You should come by more often. Usually ain't that human. Ian. This is just ridiculous, Ian muttered. Danthres was striding ahead of Ian as they walked out of the Stone Kobold. One of the other bartenders recognized the description of the person whom Court said killed Gava. It was a tall, skinny man with a large, hooked nose. They were now headed to where the bartender thought the man, whose name was Cameron, lived. At Ian's muttering, she stopped and turned around to face him. "What's ridiculous? Besides your face?" He added a grin to make it look like he was kidding. "Ian, I'm perfectly happy to run you through and claim that some random person did it before I could stop them. Look, it's just not fair, okay? When I signed on to the Guard 13 years ago, it was simple. Sure, there was a shit ton of crime, but it was all committed by morons. Now, though, the morons get caught and most of them don't bother because the Castle Guard's all for maintaining law and order in the domain." He said that with as much sarcasm and bitterness as he could muster. A considerable amount, all things considered, as he was pretty well pissed off at the moment. Danthres just stared at him with that really ugly face of hers. "And how is this a problem, exactly?" "Because now the only people committing crimes are really smart people, and they're damn near impossible to catch. Take this murder. Used to be. Someone wanted to kill a bartender, they'd just kill her in front of everyone. Now, though, everyone's worried about getting caught by us, so they start a brawl to hide what they did and make it damn near impossible to find them. If it hadn't happened to have been a wizard in the kobold, we'd be shit out of luck. It wasn't so bad before when Brisbane was in charge, but now, with Osric, it's impossible to do police work." "You mean impossible to take bribes?" "I don't know what you're talking about." He started walking again. "You really think I don't know?" Danthres called after him. "What I really think is that you're another one of Osric's holier-than-thou shitbrains who think that they're above it all. It's not how this city-state works. It never has been." With her ridiculously long legs, Danthres caught up to him quickly. "How city-states work is something that can change rather rapidly. Believe me, I know." Ian had no idea what that meant, and didn't care enough to ask. It had to do with whatever Danthres' past was, and Ian found that subject very low on the list of things he cared about. So he just kept walking. They arrived at a boarding house, where the bartender at the Stone Kobold was fairly certain Cameron lived. After knocking on the door, it opened to reveal a wizened old woman in a battered housecoat and wearing a kerchief over her hair. "What do you want?" "We're with the Cliffs End Castle Guard, ma'am," Ian said. "Yeah, I can see that, you idiot. Ain't blind, you know. What do you want?" "Is there a man named Cameron living here?" "So what if there is?" Ian sighed. "If there is, we need to talk to him." "And if he ain't, you don't need to talk to him, that it?" Whirling to give Danthres a "see" expression, he then said, "Ma'am, if you could just tell us where Cameron is so we can talk to him." "That ain't what you said. You should say what you mean." Danthres, Ian noticed, was walking around to the other side of the boarding house. Ian started trying to figure out how he was going to approach Osric about requesting to be put back with Linder. He'd been in the Guard as long as Ian, and he knew how the job was done, damn it, including not abandoning your partner when he's questioning a crazy old woman, while he slowly said to the woman, "Look, ma'am, I'm trying to be patient, but if you don't just tell me whether Cameron lives here or not, I'm going to have to arrest you." "I ain't done nothing." "No, you haven't, including answering my question. So tell me, right here, right now." He was interrupted by a male voice screaming, "Oof! Let go of me, you crazy ah!" It was coming from around the corner, where Danthres had wandered to. Running in the direction of the shouting, Ian turned to see his new partner kneeling on the back of a skinny human with a hooked nose, having wrenched his arm behind his back. Danthres looked up at him. "Want to help me arrest this shitbrain?" Before Ian could reply, Cameron cried out, "What you arrested me for? I didn't do nothing." "You killed Gava," Danthres said. "I don't know nobody named Gava." She got to her feet, pulling Cameron up as well. The bartender at the Stone Kobold. "Ow! Is that what that bitch's name is? Huh. Bad enough she wouldn't sleep with me, but then she called me ugly." Ian rolled his eyes. "Hate to break this to you, Chuckles, but you are ugly." Then he looked at Danthres. "How'd you know we'd be back here?" "The woman has the same type of nose that Court told us the killer did, so I thought she might be related to him. Probably his mother. And she was obviously stalling so he could get away, so while you talked to her, I came around back, and sure enough, our murderer was climbing out a window." The woman in the housecoat finally came around the corner and started screaming. "That's my boy! You can't take away my boy!" "Shut up, lady," Ian said, "or we'll keep you together by throwing you both in the hole." They led Cameron down the road toward Mirka Way. "You know, Ian," Danthres said, "given that this imbecile just confessed to murder without a thought, and given that you fell for his mother's obvious delaying tactic, perhaps you should consider that the criminals aren't getting smarter, but that you're getting stupider." Ian just seethed, more determined than ever to ask for a new partner. As they turned onto Mirka Way, Drew, A guard from Dragon approached them. "Oh, Lieutenants, I'm glad I found you." "What is it, Drew?" "We got a message to find you two. There's been a murder down Alfar's way. A wizard named Finnert got his throat cut right in front of his shop." Ian sighed. "We got a case." Drew grinned. "Yeah, Sergeant Newcastle said you might say that, and he said to tell you that Captain Osric wanted you two on it. I can take your prisoner. Put him in the hole till you're done." Danthres practically threw Cameron at Drew. "Take him. Come on, Ian." She strode up Mirka Way toward the intersection with Alfar's. Grumbling, Ian followed her. "Who put the gargoyle up your ass?" "It's a wizard. We need to solve this one quickly." Danthres sounded almost reverent. "You ever even met a wizard?" That earned Ian one of Danthres' typical stares of annoyance, thrown over her shoulder as he struggled to catch up with her. "Just the one at the Stone Kobold yesterday. I've never really moved in the same circles," she added with a tone of bitterness. "Trust me, they ain't exactly the paragons of virtue they pretend to be." "As if you'd know," she said dismissively. "Fine, ignore my years of experience." "Gladly." Ian sighed again. Danthres had mastered the art of sarcasm, so he knew that she was not employing it just then. They saw the crowd gathered in front of Finnert's magic shop, more easily than they could see the shop itself. Ian noted several guards from Dragon keeping people away from the area right in front of the store. "What have we got?" Danthres asked. The oldest of the guards, whom Ian recognized as a lifer named Manet, said, "Danthres? Mitre's left thumb. When'd you get promoted?" Danthres then did something Ian had never seen her do. Smile. 6 months back. I see they finally put you on days." "Yeah, I thought I'd see the sun every once in a while. Not that you can see it with all the damn buildings. Anyhow, can you take a look at this stiff so we can get him off the street?" Ian had taken advantage of his partner's reminisce to look at the body. It was an older human, thick beard, silver and black hair, wearing the usual robes that wizards wore. His neck was sliced open, dried blood near the wound. "You can get him off the street now. This ain't the crime scene." "What?" Danthres asked snappishly. He pointed at the body. "His throat was cut. There should be blood everywhere, but there isn't. Someone dumped the body here." Danthres turned to Manet without even acknowledging that Ian was right, which pissed him off probably more than it should have. "This is Finnert?" Manet nodded. "He owned the place, and his clerk found him just lying there on the street when he came out to close up." "All right, can you talk to these people, see if any of them saw anything, and get a detail to take the body to the shop? And keep that clerk around." "Right." Manet moved off to give instructions to the other guards to take care of that. Ian didn't envy whoever had to carry Finnert's body to the cave outside the Cliff's End city limits. That was where bodies were kept, and generally incinerated, until someone had specific instructions on how to dispose of their remains otherwise. Visiting there was Ian's least favorite duty. Looking over at Danthres, he amended that to second least favorite. "Let's go inside," she said. "Why didn't I think of that?" "Are you always this disagreeable, or only when you have women partners?" Danthres asked. "You're one to talk." They went inside the small shop. It was a fairly standard setup. Shelves lined with potions and scrolls and such on the walls of either side, a few stands with other items dotting the floor, and a desk in the back behind which the clerk stood. Behind that desk was an entryway to a rear room that probably included offices and storage. "Surprised the killer left the robes on," Ian muttered. "What do you mean?" "The wizards are always wearing those stupid robes." "They're not stupid," Danthres said defensively. "They wear those robes for the same reason that we wear armor." Ian snorted. "We wear armor to protect ourselves from the crazies." Danthres snarled. "Why we wear decorated armor, then? Plain armor would protect us, but our cloaks indicate our rank, and the shields on our chests and cloaks signify our assignment. The robes let everyone know that they're wizards." "Yeah, like going around shooting fireballs and turning people into newts doesn't do the trick." He stared at his partner. "I'm not seeing a sign of struggle or any blood." Nodding, Danthres said, "We should check the back." "No!" Whirling around at that voice behind them, Ian saw another older human in blue robes, though he had no beard and darker skin. "Who the hell are you? What are you doing in our crime scene?" Danthres shot Ian a look. "Please excuse my partner, sir. He takes himself a little too seriously. I assume you're here as a representative of the Brotherhood of Wizards?" "Yes. I am Mike Doherty, and you may not enter the rear room of the shop. There are things back there that you are not fit to see." "One of yours was killed," Ian said, "and we gotta find out what happened." "Actually, you do not. This is now Brotherhood business. You will leave the shop at once and inform your thugs not to touch Finnert's body. Danthres moved forward. I'm sorry, Mr. Doherty, but I'm afraid that, for once, my partner is right. When a body falls in Cliff's End, the Castle Guard's mandate is to investigate. Doherty folded his arms over his robed chest. Not when the body belongs to the Brotherhood. You will remove yourself from this site, or I will remove you. Look, Ian started. And the next thing he knew, there was a bright light, and when it dimmed, he was in the squad room, blinking spots out of his eyes. Danthres was standing next to him, while Nail and Karistan both dropped the scrolls they were carrying over to Ep in shock. Suddenly Danthres turned a bit green, then doubled over and threw up on the floor. Osric came in from the kitchen, a pastry in his hand. Newcastle right behind him. What the hell just happened? I thought you two were on the wizard murder. We were, Ian said, watching with amusement as Danthres retched. The Brotherhood took us off it. What does that mean, exactly? Osric asked in a low, dangerous tone. Ian just threw his hands up. Take it up with Mike Doherty. He's the stupid hood of wizards rep that teleported us here. Shaking his head, Osric yelled, Damn it! Captain, can I talk to you for a sec? Osric nodded, then turned to Newcastle. Make Tresyllione some tea, would you please? Teleport spells tend to be hard on the stomach, and get someone to clean that up. Good thing I've drunk my belly into submission, Ian said with a grin. Ian then followed Osric into his office and closed the door. What do you want, Ian? New partner. Better yet, my old partner. Tresyllione needs someone to work with. Everyone else has quit or refused to be paired up with her. You're my last resort. Fine, then I quit. Osric regarded Ian quizzically. Really? You can barely do this job, Ian. What makes you think you'll be able to do another one at your age? I ain't that old. Ian shook his head. You're right. I don't want to quit. But I can't take working with that bitch. Look, I'll help finish off the Gava murder, but that's it. I'm done with her. I don't know why the hell you promoted her. Because if she can get her attitude in check, she'll be the best detective in that squadron. Yeah, well, you must see a lot more with one eye than I can with two, because all I'm seeing is the attitude. Osric shook his head. Fine. Finish Gava, and then you'll be back with Linder. With Quain quitting, I need to bring someone new in any case. You partner the new guy with her, they won't stick around much longer than Quain did, you ask me. His scowl deepening, Osric said, I don't recall asking you, Ian. In fact, what I asked you was to partner with Tresyllione, which you couldn't manage for more than a day. Captain, get out of my office. Osric pulled out his dagger and started sharpening it. Knowing better than to even try talking to the captain when he was in a sharpen-his-dagger mood, Ian got up and left. He wondered if he'd be able to stand another 12 years of this shit. That is the end of part 2. Tune in tomorrow for part 3. Please subscribe to the channel so you are alerted when part 3 and subsequent episodes of KRAD COVID readings are uploaded. Check me out online, DeCandido.net, DeCandido.wordpress.com, and patreon.com/KRAD. And please, please stay safe. Thank you.